ein weiteres Video, welches ich mir vorbereitet habe, wo ich mich extra zusammengerissen habe, dass ich mir das nicht anschaue, ja, ist von der lieben Corridor Crew. Ich glaube, haben wir jetzt mal was angeschaut? Ich glaube, ganz am Anfang haben wir mal was von der Corridor Crew angeschaut. Einer meiner kompletten Lieblingschannel überhaupt auf YouTube, ja. Corridor Crew sind so Special Effects Leute, ja. Machen so dieses VFX Artists React oder sowas, ja. Und die machen halt echt geilen Scheiß. Und die haben sich quasi zusammengesetzt und haben den Trench Run in einem Tag nachgemacht. Mit VFX. Das war damals, ja. Ihr müsst bedenken, 1977 ist Episode 4 rausgekommen, ja. Dieser Film ist nicht am Computer gemacht worden, ja. Das sind alles Modelle. Das ist alles echt gebaut worden und dann sind diese Dinge da rein. Er hat die kleine Kamera dann durch das Modell durch und so sind diese Kamerashots gemacht worden. Dieser Film ist noch mit Schere geschnitten worden. Und hat einfach Monate gedauert, sowas zu machen. Wobei eine so eine Szene vielleicht keine Monate, sondern Wochen. Aber heutzutage kann man das einfach an einem Tag nachmachen und ich mag unbedingt schauen, was die da für Ergebnisse haben, ja. Weil so talentierte Jungs und ich liebe es einfach.
I think we can recreate the famous trench run scene from A New Hope in a day. Our idea is to do it as easily and casually as possible while still having it look better than the original movie.
You guys better be
So
careful
gespannt, wie das
because
macht, wie das
Disney
ausschauen
may
wird.
come after you.
Nicht zu viel spoilern.
There's nothing I like better than looking at old visual effects and imagining all the sweat, blood, and tears that went into doing those old visual effects and then flippantly and casually recreating those same visual effects in a day. We've done it with Tron, we've done it with Terminator 2.
Habt ihr euch mal diese alten Sachen angeschaut von so die Making-ofs von Episode 4, 5 oder sowas, ja? Oder auch Episode 6. Wie diese damals gemacht worden sind, ja? Das ist halt insane, was für ein Handwerk dahinter steht, jetzt diese Filme zu machen. Zum Beispiel die Explosion von Jabba's Segelbark in Episode 6 war einfach nur ein Modell. Und das ist quasi vorgecuttet gewesen, ganz leicht. Das heißt, und ich sag mal, kleiner Sprengstoff drinnen. Mit Sollbruchstellen, dann haben sie das gezündet und haben halt gehofft, dass es genau so bricht, wie es brechen sollte. Und das Budget war halt auch wieder so gering und von der Zeit, dass sie dann nur einen Versuch hatten. Und heute macht man zack, Modell rein, Dings, Physics, bla bla bla, Force, sprengen, zack, fertig.
And now we're going to do it with Star Wars, specifically the trench run. Because back in the day, when they made this trench run scene, it was a lot of work because there weren't really any computer effects. In fact, the only computer effect in the original Star Wars, A New Hope, is the wireframe of the Death Star when they're discussing the Death Star plans.
Das war das Einzige, was in Episode 4 mit Computer gemacht wurde. Das hier. Aber die Anzeige dort vor Ort. Das ist das Einzige, was in Episode 4 per Computer gemacht wurde. Das ist insane. Das verblüfft mich so sehr.
Death Star plans. I think we can recreate the famous trench run scene from A New Hope in a day.
Ja, safe call.
With the help of Fenner here.
I'm Fenner Rockcliffe.
Können wir auch mal so eine Challenge
compositor
machen?
Primarily, work as kind of a CGI generalist. Down here visiting the Corridor Crew this week.
Arguably Fenner
Können wir auch eine Challenge machen, ob wir auch den Trench Run in einem Tag nachmachen können?
He's working at VFX houses, he's working on some TV shows. So with a little bit of this like professional mixed in with like the road, we should be able to bang out a pretty cool Death Star trench run scene. Our idea is to do it as easily and casually as possible while still having it look better than the original movie. Well, let's take a look at the original trench run and break it down just a little bit here, and we'll pick out a little sequence to do.
Okay, here we go. This is an amazing shot. This could be probably one of the most amazing shots.
Das ist so cool, auch wie die Kameras sind.
We should do this shot.
Yeah, I think we have to do this shot now.
One thing I'm noticing also is the lasers don't cast any light. These bright beams of plasma energy are not illuminating the trench at all. So it would be really cool to see them fly down the trench and see that glow.
Yeah, get some of that
Das stimmt allerdings.
Maybe this is a good ending point.
Wenn ihr da genau hinschaut, in der Originaltrilogie, die ganzen Lichtschwerter geben auch kein Licht aus quasi. Das heißt, Darth Vader hält sein Lichtschwert so knapp neben seinem Helm, aber das Lichtschwert strahlt null rot auf seinen Helm aus quasi. Einfach nur, weil das Lichtschwert nur in Post-Pro nachgefügt wurde. Ich weiß gar nicht, ob wir das in den Prequels haben. Da bin ich mir gerade gar nicht sicher, ob in den Prequels die Lichtschwerter überhaupt Licht ausstrahlen. Weil in den Sequels haben wir es auf jeden Fall. Da gibt es ja die Szene in Episode 7 mit Rey und Kylo Ren, wie sie sich so die Lichtschwerter aneinander pressen, sage ich mal. Und da siehst du so in Reys Gesicht das Blau und Rot und in Kylo Rens Gesicht auch. Das ist schon eine sehr coole Szene, finde ich. Voll, bei Rogue One sieht man's. Bei Vader, ja, bei Rogue One mit Vader. Das finde ich, macht die Vader-Szene in Rogue One aber auch so wild. Einfach nur, weil man das Rot vom Lichtschwert sieht und wie er zoom, zoom, zoom macht und es erleuchtet den Raum einfach. Und das ist auch ganz wild.
Okay, so this explosion that we're looking at here, you can see the blue spill on it very clearly. What they're doing is they're filming a model and an explosion on the blue screen and then keying out the blue. But it's not a perfect key by any means. What would be cool is to see an explosion that doesn't have blue screen fringing or transparent smoke, possibly even casting light on the trench around it.
I think a big part of it too will be matching the look of those CG renders to the original footage.
Oh, yeah.
Making it look more filmic. I think that's something we want to achieve.
So let's go from swooping into the trench to the first Y-wing being blown up.
Yeah.
And let's just take some creative liberties. One of us is responsible for an X-wing, one's responsible for the Y-wing. I'll do an X-wing.
Yeah, sounds good. I might handle the Y-wing there.
Break! Alright. For George! Before I do the trench run using modern visual effects techniques, I'm going to simulate doing it the way they had to do it in 1977. I'm still going to do it in a 3D program, so I don't have actual models or a Dijkstraflex, which is the computer-controlled arm, but all the other steps will be authentic to how they had to do it. When they wanted to do...
Ich glaube, das war auch so der große Success, wie sagt man, der große Erfolg von Star Wars damals, weil es einfach von den Special Effects, von dem, was damals möglich war, einfach alles gesprengt hat. Der Film 1977, ich glaube, damals waren die Leute, die dort damals so klassische Kinogänger waren, die haben letztes Jahr Rocky gesehen und haben gedacht, das ist der beste Film, den es jemals gibt. Und mit Sylvester Stallone am Boxen. Und dann kommt auf einmal fucking Star Wars mit Raumschiffen, die herumfliegen und Laserschwertern und Laserschüssen. Und ich glaube, das muss ja alles gesprengt haben damals.
These shots. They had to do it all with models, and they had to do it camera passes. So imagine I'm at ILM, and the model shop has just delivered to me an awesome Star Wars trench. My gaffing team and my grip team went ahead and set up some lights. And I have a
Maya. Blender Army.
nice point light. There it is. Whoa, it's so bright.
What is the cinema?
I also
I have
have a
keine Ahnung.
softbox, which is this big rectangle here. It's a little dark. So I'd have to physically move my light to be in the right spot. But here I can just slide this virtual light. But same idea. So I'm Dennis Murin, and I'm like, well, what shot do I want? I want to get a shot looking down on an X-Wing as it flies down the trench. And I want to push into it and then rotate behind it. And so I got my first keyframe here.
Ja, aber
I had to
Kugeln
make
ist
it with the
machbar, hands down.
Dijkstraflex, and we have the camera
Können wir mal
fall
machen.
along and swoop down.
Ist vielleicht sogar
Once
ganz
again, they
witzig.
couldn't do real-time playback because the computer-controlled arm did not move in real time. It was basically stop motion. It'd move, take a picture, move, take a picture, move, take a picture. So after you program your motion, you couldn't just hit play and watch the thing swoop through it and be like, that's cool, that's what I like. So I'm just going to try to just not look at the animation. I'm just going to try to dial it in by hand. And then you have to film it on film. You don't get to look at it on a computer
That's
screen.
so
You have to wait for the
insane.
shots to expose and develop. So let's pretend I now have to wait until tomorrow. Okay, it's tomorrow. Let's see how it looks. Pretty cool. So now notice that I have like sharp edges in my
Ah, ist
animation,
cool mit
right?
den Dings,
It's
mit der Krümmung
move
quasi.
And it kind of locks.
Das ist
in
cool.
Cinema 4D, I can just tell it to smooth out and average out these motions. They didn't have that. They had to like manually punch in every single position. Right click, spline. Right click, spline. Done.
Jakob, du hast nicht die Programme und die Erfahrung, sowas zu tun? Lass mich dir mal was zeigen. Don't underestimate his power, exakto. Lasst mich etwas zeigen, Leute. Etwas, was wir in der Uni gemacht haben. Unter anderem der Flo und ich haben daran gearbeitet. Ich glaube, das hat jetzt keinen Sound noch. Nein, das ist nur ein Dings, das war nur ein Prototyp quasi, ja. Da hat sich dann nochmal was geändert, nämlich ein... Kann ich da nicht so herumschauen, wie ich will? Das ist ein 360-Grad-Video, Leute, ja. Ich weiß nicht, warum die Anzeige so weird ist. Ist auf jeden Fall ein 360-Grad-Video, ja. Im allerbesten Fall schaut man sich sowas... Im allerbesten Fall schaut man sich sowas mit dem VR-Headset an. Weil ich gerade den Controller runtergeschmissen habe. Aber, ja, ich habe ein VR-Headset wieder da liegen. Da sieht man, dass ich wieder was für die Uni mache. Und dann kann man das so dann fetzt man das so ein bisschen, da hat man so ein Raumschiff, dann hat man diesen kleinen Roboter. Man kann sich halt überall auch die ganze Zeit halt umschauen, ja. Man sieht halt überall sowas. Da muss man aufpassen. Hier ist so ein Planet. Wie gesagt, das ist noch quasi... Der Prototyp war das noch, weil ich habe das fertige File habe ich jetzt auf die Garten nicht gefunden. Oh Gott, ein feindliches Schiff kommt hier. Was will man denn hier tun? Oh Gott, Explosion. Bam! Und dann so, oh no, man crasht. Und dann so, oh mein Gott, es ist ganz schlimm. Wir sind hier, Notfallsequenz, es ist ganz schlimm. Oh Gott, es ist finster. Was macht man jetzt, wenn es finster ist? Oh oh. Die Kapsel baut sich zusammen und Man wird rausgeschossen. Phew, der Christian hat auch mitgemacht bei dem Projekt, jetzt kommt es mir gerade erst. Die Rettungsstation wird zerstört, also die Raumstation wird zerstört. Ich finde es ganz witzig. Sowohl mein Cutter als auch mein Kollege, der die Emotes gemacht hat und auch schon bei einigen Thumbnails etwas mitgeholfen hat, einfach beide bei dem Projekt mitgemacht. Muss ich nur noch den 4. Kollegen irgendwie einspannen. Dass er mir auch irgendwie bei meinen Arbeiten hilft. Ja, Houston, we have a problem. Es war so ein kleiner Slow-Mo, dann crasht man nochmal an, das Licht geht aus, dann beginnt sich die Kapsel langsam zum Stabilisieren, aber die ganze Zeit könnt ihr euch halt überall umschauen, wo ihr wollt. Ja? Ist halt eben 360 Grad. Und dann tritt man langsam in die Atmosphäre ein. Er macht den 4. Mod, exakto. Und dann tritt man in die Atmosphäre ein und dann, bam, dann crasht man da so. Und dann schaut man, oh, da fliegt ja das Schiff runter. Ups, das Schiff hat's zerrissen. Das ist nicht blöd. Und dann, bam, und dann ist aus. Das war eigentlich auch ein geiles Projekt. Voll der Jumpscare, ja. Vor allem, was glaubst du, wie du das fühlst, wenn du da drinnen sitzt und dir das anschaust und dir fliegt in VR so ein Ding entgegen. Achso, da ist das Statement. Okay, mein Statement. Jakob, es tut mir leid, dass ich das vermutet hatte. Ich bin davon ausgegangen, dass du dies noch nie zuvor gemacht hast. I underestimated your power, but I still got the high. Ja, Axi. Ja. So. Ein cooles Projekt. Kompletter Overkill von uns im Vergleich zu dem, was eigentlich gesucht war, also was unsere Professoren von uns wollten. Kompletter Overkill, aber ist ein cooles Projekt gewesen. Und das Ding ist, jetzt nochmal so ein Dreivierteljahr später, wo wir das gemacht haben, ich denke mal, ich werde es so gerne nochmal komplett von vorne machen und so vieles besser machen einfach. Aber ja, so ist halt.
Time to get another shot. Send it out to the film lab to be exposed.
Ja, klar gab's eine
Another day has passed. My trench is complete. So perhaps in parallel, somebody else is working on the X-Wings. Well, the X-Wing's not the same size as the trench. They haven't been built to scale. This X-Wing model could be huge. So I'm going to kind of do it how they did, just a little less math and a little more artistic eye. But one thing that's worth mentioning is they have to film all their models on a blue screen. They'd have to stick it on a blue stick, like this. So if I wanted to simulate this X-Wing flying by me, I'd have the
Entschuldigung, ich sag's immer
and the camera
falsch.
would swoop in, the X-Wing would fly by. So if the model holds still but the background appears to move, it makes it look like the model's moving. Alright, so I made my animation. Time to see if my shot's cool. Pretty freaking janky. Now I need to go into my dope sheet and my curve editor and start working with my plots.
Ohne Spaß, so insane, was die ganzen Programme jetzt einfach schon können.
He's like, you know, the X-Wing leaves the bottom of the frame. I want you to push it back just a little bit. So I'm adding some new points here. Hope they worked out. Let's get the shot. Set it in the film lab. Okay, moving a little fast.
Ich bin so gespannt, was da rauskommt.
But it's already locked into the trench run shot.
Und Dankeschön für die 100
You
Bits.
approved that earlier. I got 1 second to make that swoop. Can't change it. Okay, cool. Ready to go? Wrong. Now we need to set the lighting. So they couldn't just copy and paste their lighting setup from the trench to their X-Wing models. They could take notes and they could try to replicate it. But you couldn't just copy and paste it. You couldn't just save your 3D scene and open it with new lighting. I have a directional light coming from the left in the trench shot and I have a softbox above. So now I need to recreate that for this X-Wing. Softbox is easy enough. Let's just put that over the X-Wing. Now what about like the
Ich find's witzig, dass er es
Well, here's the
quasi
question.
digital,
Does the
aber
X-Wing
doch
dip into
analog
the shadow
macht.
of the trench? It does. So that directional light needs to be blocked off. I'm going to have to turn it off entirely. Then I'm going to emulate a bounce light hitting the side of the trench and illuminating the side of the X-Wing from the side of the trench that's all illuminated. And there we go, now I have one on the side. Is it too bright? Hard to say. This is where you gotta bust out your light meters and like, okay, here it's giving me a read of this much light. The trench gave me a read of this much light. Does it look right? Who knows? That's the thing. You have to kind of just guess.
Das ist so insane, wie die Star Wars gemacht haben. Oh, schaut schon cool aus.
X-Wing on another film reel. So now I need to process it, I need to composite it. So back in the day, you would use a series of different filters to eventually print a piece of film that's black and white. The background, the blue, being black, and everything that is what you want to save being white, or the inverse of that, depending on what stage you're doing. We're gonna use basic old color keying. Let's see how they pair up.
Und alles in After.
Not bad, honestly.
Schaut cool aus,
Notice the
aber.
lighting feels somewhat disconnected between the two. And you'll notice the exact same look in the original trench run shots, where the models kind of feel like they're lit a little bit differently in the background. And that's because they're not in the background. It's because they're just two separate things that have been filmed at separate times. Wait, I'm not done yet. I need some lasers. Let's just do it like they did. Get a draw a frickin' laser. Boom, classic Star Wars laser. Let's just see that one laser in action. Pew, pew, pew. There it is. This is how they
Ich kann noch nicht mal Paint richtig nutzen und die zaubern sowas. True.
did it. Granted, I'm doing the steps on the computer to simulate how they did it, but you have an idea now of the steps they had to go through. But now they showed you the old school way of doing things.
Ja, ich
Let me
glaube,
show
jetzt
you
macht
the
das
new
auch noch mal
school way of
gescheit.
doing things. This is the part where I get to show you all the cool things that modern technology enables us to do. So the very first thing that we have in advantage over the guys at ILM for 1977 is there's a whole bunch of people that love Star Wars now and have already made all the models for us in 3D. So I just went online and I got an X-Wing model. We found just a rough Death Star trench chunk that Fenner then added bits of greebles or geometry to. So here we have the Death Star trench. And this is actually just a bunch of little chunks here that we've copied and pasted.
Wahrscheinlich
I
hat er
took
so mit einer
that and I
gleichen
made a
Curve
material
gemacht, dass er
for
wieder
it.
so nach
It's a
unten
mixed
geht.
material. And this gives me a lot of surface variation. I've also added some little windows, and that's really nice, especially when things are motion blurred, to get nice little light streaks. After I've done this texture adjustment, I have my trench. So now I want to animate some X-Wings. All I need to do is place an object in the scene, scoot it from one end to the other, and attach the
Es ist so
X-Wings to
sick,
that.
wie schnell es heute einfach geht.
You do not have to wait a whole day. And in fact, you can preview your animations whenever you want. Oh, you see those white tubes flying by? Those are lasers. I built a particle emitter that shoots lasers. In fact, I can aim that particle emitter wherever I want. And I can make multiple versions of it, so I can have multiple laser guns shooting turrets everywhere. And one of the really cool things about having your lasers be a part of the physical scene that you are working on.
Das dauert ewig zum Rendern. Vor allem mit dem leichten
onto your
Volume, was er
objects.
drinnen hat dann auch.
Directional lighting gives everything
Und mit dem
volume and
Motion
shape
Blur, das
and helps
dauert
you
ewig
feel
zum Rendern.
the physicality of it. It looks pretty freaking rad. Check this out. The X-Wing that's in the top left corner of this frame, that X-Wing is casting a shadow on the side of the Death Star. I am showing you
True,
that
das habe ich noch gar
those
nicht gedacht, dass die
X-Wings
ganzen
are in the
X-Wings im
same
Trench Run
world
noch
as
keine
this trench. I'm
Schatten
showing
auf
you
den
the scale of
Todesstern
the X-Wings. I'm showing you how fast
werfen.
they're moving and how close they
Weil
are
sie
to
einfach
the wall.
separat gefilmt worden sind.
Flex on ILM in 1977.
Whoa, hey guys, it's me, Jake, here in my
Oh.
fighter jet.
Ich glaube,
Here
das
to
ist
tell
heißt
you
noch
about
Sponsor, den brauchen wir aber nicht.
Do.
Yeah.
So.
Dressing them up with a whole bunch of
Wow, ach
additional
Gott, das schaut
looks
jetzt schon
and
wild aus.
effects.
Yeah. This render just came out of Blender Cycles. Right out of Blender, it actually
Ja,
looks pretty
raus aus
janky.
Blender,
It's just kind of
dankeschön.
like a motion blurred mess, and there's not a lot of contrast going on. So this is where I find that Nuke is really helpful. I render with like a multi-channel EXR, and then I have multiple AOVs that I can adjust and kind of dial in the look afterwards. You have your kind of beauty layer here, and then I have my like ambient occlusion. And the other nice thing is too is we can just isolate out our emissive passes here. So I've got all the kind of lights that are within the trench and all of the
classic. Das
different
kann Blender
lasers as
auch.
well. And this is really helpful because then I can kind of do some cool post effects on the standard stuff like glows, and then get a little bit more in depth and start to add some kind of like distortion and heat effects coming off of it. So it makes it more than just the basic like cylinder laser kind of particle
Ist das auf
system
meinem
that we
PC
set up.
fertig
And
ist
then
und
a
wenn
big
es
thing that we're
Agreement
adding
ja,
that
well.
really kind of helps sell that filmic
Yo,
cinematic
schaut
look
das
is
auch cool
doing a bit
aus.
of like a lens dirt setup. So I've got a couple different textures here, and we're basically using these and driving them by a keyed version of like the luminance here. We get a little bit of kind of that like natural fall off that you'd see through a camera lens, and then sometimes if it's bright enough, you're gonna pick up an actual little bit of texture, kind of grime on the lens. I also like to just always kind of kiss in some additional stuff for a shot like this, like lens barreling.
Wie viel
as if
noch
we're
mal in
kinda, like,
Post-Effects
pinging the
steht
kind of
quasi.
edges of our camera's lens, add some vignette to kind of draw the viewer's eye to where we want it to go. Then a bit of healthy dose of chromatic aberration. It helps kind of give that contrast, which again, pretty subtle. I also added in a little bit of off-screen flaring, and I can find that like, you know, that's something if you're shooting practically, you're gonna
That's
get
so
that.
cool.
Right? You're gonna have
You don't have to even think about it.
yeah, it's just gonna happen. So I've got like a little bit of a LUT applied here to make it look more filmic, and then just kind of a healthy dose of lens distortion on the bottom there, just to kind of play up a little bit of that pseudo anamorphic look to it. Once we've got our 235 crop on there, you go from something that didn't look very cinematic before, just
pretty
adjusting it.
extreme.
Allerdings.
You go to that. So
Yeah.
Ah, schon
That's
ein
a huge
sicker
difference.
Unterschied.
And now because you basically have this node tree, you can theoretically just swap your input image sequence to a different image sequence, and all this math and filters and functions that you build will all still flow through, and you'll end up basically with all these
schaut
effects
so gut
applied to a
aus.
new
Ah!
footage,
yeah.
just by simply
Wenn man
retargeting
einfach
the very
Episode
first
4
step.
nochmal
Maybe
neu
this isn't
machen
the
würde.
correct way
Alles
to do
gleich,
this, but when we're doing this in
Einstellungen,
like a week and trying to turn around a bunch of stuff, it's just kind of like
Dialoge,
what can
alles
we do
gleich.
quickly that's gonna get us to the finish
aber
line.
Cool.
einfach
Then
neu
to have a
gemacht.
really
Ich
cool
glaube, das würde auch ein bisschen den Charme
side-by-side comparison of
entfernen.
the original shots from the
Das wäre auch
trench run,
schade.
our shots that we did in just a few days, and maybe even a little sequence where you get to see our shots cut into the movie to see how they fit. Stay tuned to see our cool renders.
Die Ergebnisse.
Alright, we are
Ich bin
joined
hyped.
by Sam and Brendan from So Chrissy Media. Have you ever heard of Shock Warfare? That's like a bajillion views on YouTube. Well, these are the guys that made it. Also, Dean, the resident Star Wars Ultra fan, though you might have to fight Christian for that title to see who the real Ultra fan is.
Well, I mean, just watch back the Node Trivia Challenge. He was there. He lost terribly.
I want to show you guys a project that Fenner and I have been working on. I'm curious to see what you guys think about the final results.
Yeah, we just kind of walked in here and we don't know what to expect. So let's see how this goes.
I'm really curious here.
Switch to targeting.
Yo!
Keep your eyes open for those fighters. I'll take them myself.
Leute, die haben das in einem Tag gemacht. Natürlich haben sie sich Mühe gegeben, aber wenn die das gescheit machen wollen, dann schaut das nochmal so viel besser aus als das. Innerhalb von einem einzigen Tag sowas herzaubert. Das ist insane.
You guys better be careful because Disney might be coming after you. It looks incredible. Like, it absolutely looks incredible. The glow on those lens flares. Who did the compositing for this?
Right here. Yeah.
And who are you?
Who am I?
Dude, that lens flare right on the top. That is like the cherry.
The spice, right? It's a little spice.
I like the lens
Schaut
distortion
so
bulbs.
gut aus
Yeah, I
einfach.
was going to say.
It's
Liebe es.
subtle, but it really like makes it work.
You see the reflection of like the Death Star trench on the canopy, whereas you don't have that in the models because they're filmed separately.
I think the biggest difference we're noticing is the originals. There's no interactive lighting. Like even some of the shots where they're like the
stimmt
Y-wings
schon,
in
das
the
Licht
trench,
macht das
they're
meiste
fully
aus.
lit. They're not actually having any of the shadow from the trench.
It's so much more dynamic than the original shot.
Are there lights on here? Like are there little emissive zones? Okay.
They actually have that in the real trench also. It's just a really nice textural effect to the trench.
It's bouncing this late.
Oh, we're getting a little technical. You're right. Brendan noticed. There's a softbox right here, shining soft light down into the trench. And that's the reflection of it right there.
Okay.
It's not visible to the camera, but it is visible to reflections. But you can notice how like the lasers actually reflect off of R2's head.
Oh yeah.
Which is really nice.
Sweet with the green flares flying by on them.
Let me take a look at some of the Fender shots here.
Total upgrade.
Like the glow from the engines on the
Ich bin einfach wie
Added in some
sprachlos
lights there, and
quasi.
they're
Das ist
just
einfach
like
so
parented
wild,
to
das
the
ist
actual
einfach so
models
cool.
of the Y-wings there, so you actually get them like kind of lighting up the trench as they're flying through the shadows.
Far
there.
above,
I like the little
far
subtle
above.
camera jitter
Don't
too.
know
make
where
me feel
before.
like this camera's
Far
just
above, far
flying down
above.
the trench.
What was
Oh, that looks very
was
weird.
what once was great is rendered small. Well,
I gotta say, these shots
Dankeschön
are
für deinen
like
Witz gesagt,
high-budget
natürlich.
TV
Worum geht's in dem Video?
quality.
In dem Video geht's um eine kleine Gruppe von extrem talentierten Burschen, die einfach die Szene vom Trench Run aus Episode 4 innerhalb von einem Tag digital nachgestellt haben und das war das Ergebnis. Aber auch so wie die Explosion dann da. Ups.
Go on
Das ist
HBO.
einfach innerhalb von einem Tag gemacht.
Oh yeah, that's flashy.
I will say the motion looks pretty accurate to the original Star Wars movies because didn't they have those models on like just a line? And
Yeah.
it was wiggling on the line.
This is the shot where you're like, all right, now we need like Houdini on top of all this. It's one thing to build the model and make it look nice, but then to build
Houdini
the
ist auch so ein
internals
Programm, wo ich
of
so
it
gern mal
and it
reinschauen
actually
würde.
destroy itself.
Yeah.
Ich glaube, das ist auch
Whole
nochmal so
crazy
schwierig
process.
zu machen.
I think when you throw some explosives in a model and you just roll the camera and you blow
Ach so,
it
das
up,
ist nicht-
it's so much harder
Achso, das Video heißt, we remade Star Wars Trench Run in one day.
to get that same quality with CGI.
Nein,
thought
ich
about
glaube, da kommt jetzt eh nichts mehr.
Years
Das
since
ist
they remastered the whole thing. We're gonna remaster the whole thing now.
Should we just remaster the entire trench now?
I feel like it's been a couple
2006? Was ist das für eine Edition? TN1 Silver Screen? Ist das die Original oder wie?
years since they remastered the whole thing. You know, we're due for another remaster.
Do it for George, man.
Achso, so
So next
Fan-Remaster,
video,
glaube
we
ich, war das.
practically recreate the trench run.
Ah, großartig, ohne Spaß. Leute, Corridor Crew. Oder einfach nur, upsala, oder einfach nur Corridor. Also Corridor Crew machen so eher so ein bisschen Dings, so ein bisschen so spaßigere Sachen. Corridor Cast ist ihr Podcast und einfach nur Corridor. Da machen sie halt so kurzfilmmäßiges Zeug. Seid einfach großartig. Großartig. Einer der besten Channel überhaupt auf YouTube. Auf jeden Fall abchecken.